Alright, as we carry on, this is part 2. Oh, which reminds me I need to number the first video, part 1. Okay, so this is part 2 of the continuation of chapter 7, right? The ineffective defense of an overextended Japanese empire is the second factor for Japan's defeats. Okay, so bear in mind that you need to draw the links. Okay, after we finish the first factor about USA's economic strength, right? You need to draw the link. Basically, in your essays, you need to be explaining how exactly did USA's strengths lead to Japan's defeats. Adding a one-liner after you talk about how USA is very strong, they got a lot of money, blah blah blah. By the way, don't say USA have a lot of money. That's so primary school, okay? Yeah. So after you say about all the USA strengths, that's basically your description. You don't add in one line and say, therefore, this led to Japanese defeat in World War II. Full stop. That is not a link. That is not an explanation. Okay. So same thing. All these factors are actually quite tricky because they don't provide you a direct link. You need to draw your own links, you need to draw your own explanation to explain whatever question it is. And this can be a common question in which they ask you what is the main reason for Japan's defeat in World War II. Okay? Now, the overextension of Japanese empire is very easy to understand. I only have one slide on it, and that's what you see on the screen now. 1942, Japan occupied almost whole of Southeast Asia. It was difficult for them to actually maintain and defend these newly occupied Southeast Asian territories. So from 1942, Japan suffered key military defeats. So in 1942 is the year in which they successfully more or less occupied almost all of Southeast Asia. But to keep it up, to maintain these, you need manpower. You need people to, boss people around, to have some kind of structure. You still need to have some kind of government. Being a government is not easy. Being a government is not easy. And you need to find some way to rule, to govern these countries. Because you say that you invade us, you're stronger than us, then you should be taking care of it, right? So the Japanese need to actually take care of it. Of course, you can think about it and say, oh, very easy one. Anybody who disobeys, just shoot. Yeah, if you are thinking that, you shouldn't be in government. Okay, so from 1942 onwards, they suffered many defeats because their resources are simply too stretched. Okay, and bear in mind that they are still fighting battles somewhere else. So even though they occupy Southeast Asia already, they still have to, contend with the other battles that USA is launching against them. So there were also key military defeats against them. This is not on my slides, but if you look at your textbook, there are quite a few examples given there on page 199. And one of those that were mentioned, Guadalcanal. There's I think it's a HBO series on it, TV series called The Pacific on Guadalcanal, the battles at Guadalcanal. And you can see another familiar name down there, Iwo Jima, the letters from Iwo Jima, one of the small little islands that was very important to Japan's strategic location. You lose that island, if you remember, if you have seen the movie, or if you have remembered me showing you some parts of the movie, you would have seen that, some of the normal men and normal Japanese soldiers, the very low-ranking ones, they'll be wondering, why are we defending this piece of rock? Okay. This piece of rock that has absolutely no significance and there's nothing important on it. The only importance of it is its strategic location. So if you're able to capture Iwo Jima, you can park your aeroplanes, you can park your resources, then from there you prepare, plan, and then you can actually launch an invasion against Japan. So that's the importance of its strategic location. Okay, other battles mentioned is Okinawa, Philippines, Mariana Islands, and Solomon Islands. So all these let me correct myself. All these details, you can find it inside the textbook and read it for your own understanding and enjoyment. Okay. So that's the second factor. The third factor is the desire of the Allies to secure a quick victory in the Asia Pacific. Now, Japan used forced labor to solve its manpower shortage. Now, when you are captured as a prisoner of war, by right, okay, again back to the rules of war, which nobody hardly ever follows during wartime. If you are captured as a POW, a prisoner of war, you are not supposed to be doing anything that your enemy tells you to do, I mean, you are captured, so this shows then you are not. So the significance of you being captured would be you not being able to continue contributing to the war on your side. So the more people that you can capture without ill treating them, without torturing them, without doing anything to them, without killing them, okay, the other side would lose because they are losing their manpower. So let's say the opposing side, 5 million people fighting in the army, you capture 4 million of them as POWs, keep them, don't need to torture them, don't need to kill them. Eventually the other side we're going to lose because of manpower issues and resources issues, right? So the POWs are still supposed to be respected and treated humanely in terms of the rules of war. So, to give you another specific example of how a POW should be treated, is that even if you are of a certain rank, if you're a high-ranking officer who got captured, okay, if I'm the enemy and I capture you, I should still call you the title that you deserve. So officers usually are entitled to being called sir, so I should still be calling you sir, not calling you like dog or some other degrading term, okay? Right, but the Japanese, obviously, well, and not just the Japanese, okay, most of them, after they have captured a POW, the POW will be subjected to torture or stuff like that. I can't say that that happens in every single country, but you think about it logically. If I want to win a war, I captured a high-ranking officer. Logically, what you're going to do is try to force this high-ranking officer to give you information to help you to win the war. And if he doesn't want to give information, well, sometimes you might resort to some other measures that are not entirely agreed. I'm not saying that I condone this, but I'm saying that it happens. I can't say what I would do if I were in that situation. Hopefully I'm not. Okay, so now these POWs, they were being forced to work as forced laborers. So one of the important things, not important, or rather one of the things that they have built was the Death Railway, or is the Death Railway, which is still here around in Thailand. It is called a Death Railway, but the name is actually Thai-Burma Railway. It can be found on page 200 of your textbook. I visited it before. It was in Thailand, and I was in training with the army in Thailand in Kanchanaburi. I'm not sure where we traveled to the Thai railway, but I assume that that's near Bangkok. If you can take a day trip out, if I'm not wrong, you can go visit it if you're interested. So that's one of the things that they built. And of course, there were a lot of torture going on, and there was a lot of hostility towards these allied POWs because, because simply you're the enemy, lah. Okay, so what all these actually did, right, was to contribute to the Allies' desire to secure a quick victory in the Asia Pacific. Now, you might be wondering, okay, now that's the, okay, maybe I finish this part before I talk about the link and the explanation, or the importance of this factor. Now, also another one that they wanted to, another aim that they had in mind was to minimize their losses from kamikaze attacks. So kamikaze are actually suicide missions by Japanese pilots against the Allied ships. And now kamikaze is basically launching your, let's say if you're a pilot, you're flying a plane loaded with explosives, you have dropped all your explosives, the enemy is shooting at you, you think that your chance of actually flying back to base is very small. What do? Crash your plane and sacrifice yourself for the glory of the Japanese Empire. Well, that is basically what kamikaze is. So that's what they did as well, and they launched their planes. The plane itself becomes a bomb. Now, if you think about it very simply, okay, which I hope you don't have such a simple mind, that yeah, it's a good idea, a good plan, right? You know, the plane itself is a bomb. I mean, what you can maybe try to do, eject from the airplane, and then after that maybe try to save yourself, or run the risk of getting captured and possibly tortured. Not very smart, but the Japanese, they would rather sacrifice themselves, so they didn't consider the fact that they had to eject out the airplanes. Now, that's a simple way of thinking, simple-minded way of thinking about how effective this can actually be. Yes, you can wreak a lot of havoc and destruction, but you got to consider that the human person is a resource. Okay, every human being is a resource. So by committing suicide, you are actually losing your country valuable resource, because a pilot is extremely difficult to train. So when you actually sacrifice yourself, right, and causing your country to actually train even more pilots, that's not a very smart move. Okay, but to the Japanese, now we have explained already in chapter 6, the reason why they do this is because they see glory, honor in sacrificing themselves for their country, and that's why they do it. And the Allies, of course, they suffer quite a bit of damage from these kamikaze attacks, and they want to minimize it as much as possible. Now, if you look at the last line here in my previous slide, strengthen the determination of Allied powers to end the war. Now, in terms of numbers, in terms of calculation of things, like in the first two factors, we can see numbers. First factor, economic strength. I have more than you, so I can beat you because I have more than you. Of course, it's about don't discuss about how you use the numbers and all that, but the fact of the matter is that there's more numbers. Second factor, limited resources, overstretched empire. So in terms of numbers, smaller numbers, not enough numbers. This third factor has absolutely no numbers at all. You cannot count it. It's intangible. Okay, but it's talking about simply determination. Now, don't undermine this thing called determination. Okay, because this is something actually very important in most things that you do. Like, I might tend to scold some students and say that you have no determination, you have no desire to actually do well in your O levels, and that's why you are failing. Don't tell me that you are stupid. Okay, that's not possible. If you're really stupid, you wouldn't be in this school anyway. You wouldn't be. No student of mine is stupid. Okay, so if you have no determination, then you will basically be very lazy and you're not inclined to study hard, and therefore you will not be able to do well. So you being able to do well is not in terms of numbers of your IQ, or it's in terms of your determination. So that is important in helping to end the war as well. All right. Okay, I spent more time than I expected because there's quite a few things to talk about, and I hope that this is interesting enough for you. No, sorry, correct myself. This will be interesting enough for you, and you will be very entertained by my videos. And yep. All right. Let's see. Let me do another factor. I think I'll need 3 parts to this video then. Okay. Now, the Allied victory in Europe, I think this one is straightforward. So after they defeated Hitler, please try to remember the dates for this. So Hitler was defeated somewhere around April and May of 1945, and he committed suicide. Germany surrenders, they win, and from then on they can focus their full attention on Japan. Okay. Yeah, Japan's success in the war was partly dependent on the fact that they were busy. The Allies were busy dealing with Hitler first. So after USA entered the war, they also agreed that they should defeat Hitler first rather than Japan. So after Germany was defeated, sorry, I have the date for you, May 1945, then they could focus their full attention on Japan. Now, I know at the last point here it says, even before Germany's defeat in the war in May 1945, it was clear that Japan could not hope to win the war. So even this is a contributing factor. I don't think it's a very main important factor, but even before Germany was defeated, the battles, the defeats that they have experienced in all the small little battles would have been very clearly showing to Japan that they could not have hoped to win the war. Besides, they were running out of resources, their overstretched empire, and all these contribute to the fact that this is a contributing factor but might not necessarily be a main factor in leading to Japan's defeats. Okay, so now the last part I shall talk about the last two, the demand for unconditional surrender and the dropping of the atomic bomb, and that will conclude chapter 7.